All right, welcome to the conversation on the TYT network. So we just had a case come down from the Supreme Court, 5-4, narrowly, but it actually came down on our side with Chief Justice John Roberts ruling with the liberals on the court, believe it or not, saying that abortion basically cannot be prevented in Louisiana. Now that's a big summary of a more case with more detail, and that's why we brought on someone to talk about it. And it's really about abortion providers. So Liz Winstead is the co-creator of The Daily Show. She was also the head writer at The Daily Show. She's also the founder of Abortion AF, which of course stands for Abortion Access Front. And Liz, you've been following this case closely. It's great to have you back. So tell us more specifically what the case was about.
So to lay out what the case is about, you have to look at what the case was about 4 years ago, when Texas brought this exact same case before the court. We all remember Wendy Davis standing in her pink sneakers. That was this case. It went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, wow, you wanna know what? The hospital admitting privileges that the state of Texas tried to enforce is unconstitutional. Now, John Roberts in that case was ruling on the side of Satan, not on the side of the abortion angels. But John Roberts is a big fan of precedent and also his own legacy. And so this time around, he basically had no choice but to side with the liberals to say, you know what? 4 years ago, this court said these laws are unconstitutional, and I can't in any way, shape, or form see how this case is any different. And so since I believe in precedent and stare decisis, I have to say, we're gonna throw this Louisiana law out the door. And they did.
So it's great news for a couple of reasons. One, because without this ruling, Louisiana would have been down to just one abortion provider in the whole state, which would have made it de facto unavailable and inaccessible for huge amount of people in Louisiana. And so that was, of course, the intent of the law. And so the fact that they struck it down is great. And it does create it would have created what the Supreme Court has called a substantial obstacle to getting an abortion. And so, but it goes beyond that. Liz, to me, probably the best part of the decision is if John Roberts is saying, I'm gonna respect precedent that's been in place for just 4 years. Well, it seems like you would certainly then respect a precedent that's been in place since 1973 called Roe versus Wade. So does that mean this is over? This court will not overturn Roe v. Wade?
Well, I think not. And I think that when Roberts wrote in this opinion, pretty specifically saying this particular law, because it had been set, has been something he wanted to uphold, but he did say if something else came down the pike, another type of abortion law, that John Roberts would be willing to hear that and throw it out. We forget oftentimes that there's Roe v. Wade, and then there's been many abortion cases in between. The biggest one probably being Planned Parenthood v. Casey, which was the law that states sued to curb access to abortion. And in that law, they upheld Roe, but they said a state could create laws if they didn't, quote, create an undue burden. But the court never, ever defined what an undue burden was. So that's how you get these Louisiana laws and these Texas laws. And so as we look at what undue burden is or isn't, because there's no definition, these laws could come and strip away Roe to the point where Roe doesn't exist. And I think that we all have to remember that as these laws come through state legislatures, if you have an attorney general in your state that's not going to challenge them, and now that we have a circuit court that's been packed by Trump, we don't have a process for which anybody is going to pay any attention to Supreme Court precedent, and who knows what John Roberts will do next time.
Yeah, anything else to look out for in this particular case?
The thing that was interesting about this case is that there was a second piece to this case, which is the courts also ruled in the same 5-4 decision, same people, whether or not a clinic would have standing to sue on behalf of patients. If the courts had ruled that clinics didn't have standing, that would mean that it would have to be an individual seeking an abortion who would have to bring a case against the law. And as we all know, it takes about 3 years for a case to go through a court system, and pregnancy is 9 months. So ostensibly, there would have been no cases that would ever be able to be brought to challenge these laws. So the fact that they shut that down is pretty incredible. So it is a double win, but don't celebrate too hard, because a next case is going to come down the pike that who knows how the circuit courts and how Roberts is going to feel about that.
Well, I'm going to offer a compromise here, that we celebrate super hard right now, and then get tomorrow for,
Yes, I should have come on hammered. Now that I think about it, I should have celebrated and then come on. I kind of blew it.
Yeah. But seriously, this is a big win. And Liz, I actually think there's a political ramification here too, which is that, one of Trump's main reasons to go out and vote for him, for conservative or evangelical voters, is don't worry, I'm getting you, no matter what kind of a monster I am or bad guy, or you don't like my language, you don't like the way that I attack people, you don't like that I have 18 mistresses and all that stuff, right? But hey, I'm getting you conservative Supreme Court justice, and we're going to overturn Roe v. Wade and all this stuff. Now with this Supreme Court ruling in favor of LGBTQ rights, in favor of dreamers, and now in favor of abortion providers, he might be in even bigger trouble in trying to get people out to the polls.
Well, here's where I might challenge that, and that is his two guys voted and had very strong language on this abortion case. And I think that a lot of times, and a conversation that progressives need to have more, is that when it comes to dreamers and when it comes to LGBTQ rights, those are people. Abortion is something that you decide to have, right? And so it's always been an outlier, even in progressive spaces, because it's not tangible in the sense that when we're talking about dreamers, we are talking about a group of people who live in our society. And you talk about gay folks, same thing. Abortion is something you have. And so until we rectify as a society that abortion is literally the way that someone has emancipation over their own body, and why that is important to humanity, to human rights, to self-determination, and we really hold that with all of the importance that it is, we're still going to be able to use it as a wedge issue, and progressives are still going to be able to use it as a tool that puts it into a space that they feel they can find compromise on. And I'm fighting against that.
Yeah, Liz, I love the way you just framed it, that it's an emancipation issue. That's exactly right. And so, all right, now I also know that there's a case about birth control coming up. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so coming down, it could be as early as this week or into July, but we all remember the Hobby Lobby case and how a Christian craft store has decided that they could decide that birth control was against their religious beliefs. A new case is coming down the pike. It is Trump v. the state of Pennsylvania. They merged with the Little Sisters of the Poor, taking it out of the religious RFRA realm and putting it into a very broad, vague morality realm, so that any corporation, when I say any, Goldman Sachs could say, my morals say that I don't want to cover my employees' birth control. It has taken it out of the religious realm and has trumped the most insane argument that corporations not only are religious, but now they're also moral and can have moral decisions made about the healthcare plans of their employees. It could, if they rule on this, the ramifications could be massive. And there is no definition of morality. It's just a broad moral statement. All the corporation needs to say is, my morals object to your birth control. Done.
Yeah, with the mythology that the Supreme Court has created over all these years, it's hard to keep track of what the hell they're talking about. Mm-hmm. So if a corporation has morals, who in the corporation does the CEO get to decide? Do the shareholders get to decide? Is like, whose morality are we talking about? Maybe one shareholder believes in abortion and another one doesn't. So I mean, this is absurd.
Well, and also, what if the morality of this corporation, what if the corporation looked at you, Cenk, and said, you want to know what? I don't see you as somebody who should be parenting. I question your judgment on parenting, so I'm going to force you to use birth control. Could that happen? I don't know.
Yeah, and by the way, of course they couldn't make you do it, but what they could do is fire you for not doing
it.
And they could make it so that you can't afford your health coverage if you don't follow their so-called morality. And it's bad enough when that morality is attached to a human being who's controlling your life. I think it's arguably worse when it's an amorphous machine that we created called a corporation. I don't even know what that means. So like, if they have morality, they don't seem to have exhibited one yet, Liz.
I know, I have not seen one yet. I've not seen a corporation that I feel like I want to just give over to have them decide whether or not I'm moral.
Thanks for watching this free clip of the Young Turks. Don't forget to become a TYT member today. For more exclusive content, join now at tyt.com/join.